years ago, somewhere in there, and then in 2018 we became world famous for our compassionate treatment of lobsters. And then actually at the beginning of the summer, it kind of came back around again. And so kind of a brief summation of it is, when I went to college, I went to Case Western Reserve in Cleveland, Ohio, and we were studying philosophy. And so I was like, I don't know, 23, somewhere in there, and I'm 51 now. But and I think that's our food being delivered, so this will be exciting. We were studying Fyodor Dostoevsky, and he was talking about when you create something, if you don't have kind of goodness all the way through the entire thing, it'll 25 turkeys walking across the field back.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah.
I just had to put it out.
Go get her a picture, Ben.
If you have something that's not good all the way through and through, it just kind of ruins the whole thing. It's kind of the summation of it. He said it far more eloquently. It was the brothers Karamazov, I think.
Yeah.
But that was basically the gist of it. Because when I started this restaurant a decade ago, I was trying to find a way to create something where people could just come and experience joy, where they could come and be happy and eat great food and listen to good music and play in a field and make real memories and do real stuff and take something away from it that was really good. And so we did that. And so when I opened it, every year more and more people would come and they were loving it. It was wonderful, and the kids were drawing pictures about what they did over the summer, and it was all great. But it was all at the expense of the lobster. And the thing, when I was little, I was like 7 or 8 growing up here in this town, I would save up my allowance and I would go across the street to the town dock, and I would buy as many of the lobsters and crabs as I could, and I would set them free off the town dock. So that was how I got started there. And then I sort of looked at what I was doing and realized, you know what, this is great and it's wonderful, but it's all happening at the expense of them, and it's really kind of the opposite of who I am. So I need to find a way to make that better. And so I first started looking at, well, maybe I'll just go with an all-vegetarian menu and we'll go that route. And I looked at studies that were done on plants and saw that, you know, even with plant studies, there's stress that's happening to the plants when you're cutting them. So they're going through stress. So I guess kind of the summation of that is, if you can't take suffering off the table, that was punny. If you can't take suffering off the table completely, then at least you can make it better. So find a way to make it better. And that was kind of, I think that was kind of the foundation of that. So I wanted to find a way that I could make the process of cooking the lobsters better for the lobster. And so if it was going to be done, how can we do this so it's almost as painless as possible? Because there's always been this kind of belief that, oh, they don't feel anything. That's absolute crap. I've done this forever. And they do, they stress, they shoot their claws off, you can see them strategizing and they're trying to climb over each other to get out. They don't have vocal cords, so they can't verbalize any of this, and they're in a little shell, so you can't see that, you know, they're stressing, but they are. And so I wanted to find a way to make that better. And so what I did is, you know, every year would just I would feel kind of worse about it. And then one night I just kind of sort of prayed about it, or did kind of this universal shout out of like, you know, hey, can you step in and just show me how I can make this better somehow? And so this was back in 2018. And so my kind of whole life growing up, my father was an Episcopal minister. I grew up here in this town, and cannabis was like not accepted in any capacity. I wouldn't even be friends with people who had friends, who had any involvement with that. And I knew nothing about it, just kind of what I'd heard. And so also when I was at Case Western, I was back in my 20s, and I would kind of notice people around me and see that they were always, you know, kind of happy, and they were whistling and this and that, and I wasn't doing any of that. So I'd kind of gone into our health services there one day and said, hey, you know, I see other people are really happy. I'm not. I don't know what to do about this. And this was now 30-some years ago. And they said, you know what, here's the thing. You probably have depression. You should try this antidepressant. It just came out by Pfizer. It's called Zoloft. You should go on this. All will be fine. And so I did. And I took this like little tiny dosage of it literally for decades. And after a short while, it stopped doing anything at all. And if you didn't take it, you felt a lot worse, but by taking it, you didn't feel any better. And so when I was in my like mid-40s, I was dating this guy who probably smoked cannabis since he was birthed. And I was dating him, and one day he had some, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to give this a whirl. And so I tried it. And then it was really interesting because what happened to me was I sort of realized that really the whole belief system I had as a child was actually really dead on correct. And I really kind of strayed away from that. And I really didn't need anything else in my system except for maybe this. So I just started doing a whole bunch of research on cannabis, and I started looking at the pharmaceutical industry, and I looked at stuff that goes into that. Long story short, the conclusion I reached is I want to do everything organic. And so I switched over, I started using cannabis, small doses, that was great. So anyway, this one night I did my shout out to the universe and said, how can I make this better? And I fell asleep in like middle of the night, like 3 o'clock in the morning. I sit straight up in bed and there's no real way to describe it except it was more like when you know something without knowing how you know it. You just know it because it resonates in everything in your being, and you know something is absolutely true. And so I woke up just knowing that cannabis would work for lobsters, no doubt, absolutely, 100% it would work. So I came into work really excited about it, and my crew, I was telling Professor Rick this morning that, these guys have been with me, some of them since the day I opened. So very tight-knit, very, kind of family-oriented. And so I came in and I said, look, hey, I don't know how I know this, and now we got to prove this, but I know cannabis is going to work for lobsters. It's going to work. It's going to solve this thing. So one of the guys who worked here said, I'll go back and do some research on that this afternoon. He came back and he said, oh my God, I found this research that was done in New Zealand, like now 15 years ago. He goes, on invertebrates, and invertebrates have a cannabinoid receptor. Because so lobsters are part of the invertebrate family. They have a cannabinoid receptor, so if we can find a way to get it into their system, it's gonna work. So then we set around to creating a way to get it into their system. So basically what we did is we created